We have an election coming up. Soon it's going to be time for you to vote. But before you vote, you need to know how our electoral system works, and it's not that straightforward. So I'm going to explain how MMP, our electoral system, works. You're going to get two votes. You can vote, you have a party vote and you have an electorate vote. Let's start with the party vote. The party vote is the main thing that decides which parties are going to be in Parliament and how big they're going to be. So you vote for parties like Labour or National or Greens or whatever, and the percentage of the votes they get determines the percentage of the seats or the percentage of the people that are going to be in Parliament. So, for example, if we had a white team and a yellow team, and they each got 40% of the votes, they would get 40% of the seats in Parliament. That's not enough to form a government. You need 50%. So what has happened so far in every MMP election in New Zealand is they've formed coalitions or other kinds of agreements. So they might form a deal, get a few seats from these guys might get a few seats from these ones, and they might be able to form a government, get more than 50%. In New Zealand, we've also had a situation where there's been a party in the middle who has been able to decide which side will form a government. They've said, we'll go with you or we'll go with you, depending on what you give us. So these parties in the centre end up with an awful lot of bargaining power. Now, not every party that runs in the election is going to get in. In order to get into Parliament, you need to get 5% of the party vote. So these parties that get less than 5% don't get in at all unless they win an electorate seat. So let's move on to the electorate vote. So the party vote determines which parties are in Parliament and how many seats they get. This is what Parliament looks like at the moment. We've got National, Labour, Greens, New Zealand First, ACT and one independent MP. The number of seats they got, each of these sort of squares of 4, was determined by how many party votes they got, with one exception. This is the ACT seat that David Seymour has. He won Epsom. ACT didn't get anywhere near 5%, but because he won one electorate, he got one seat in Parliament. Now, ACT got a very small party vote. This time it looks pretty likely that they'll get a higher party vote. The thing is, once you win an electorate, even if you don't get 5%, every party vote counts. So 5% is about 6 MPs. Even if they only got 2.5%, they would get 3 MPs next time. This is called coattailing. So while your party vote is the most important one for determining who gets into Parliament, for parties like ACT, who target electorates but don't necessarily expect to get 5% of the party vote, electorate votes are really, really important. And while electorate votes might not make a big difference to which parties are in Parliament, they do make a difference to who represents you in your local area. Your local area, your electorate, will generally have a few people standing from it, and usually they belong to parties. So you'll get to vote for which individual you think will represent you best. It doesn't have to be the same as your party vote. A lot of people give a party vote to one party and an electorate vote to someone from another party. There are 71 electorates in New Zealand and there are 120 seats in Parliament, usually. Anyone who wins an electorate gets to go into Parliament. And sometimes, in fact, most of the time for the big parties, they get more seats from their party votes than they do from the number of electorates they win. So these ones might all be taken up by electorate MPs, and then there are a whole bunch of extra seats. Those are made up by list MPs. A list is just a ranked order of MPs who are going to be the first cabs off the rank to fill any extra seats that your party has. So if a party wins 5% of the party vote, they get about 6 MPs. Say they've already won 2 electorates, the first 2 6 MPs will be ones who won their electorates, and then the remainder of the 6 will be the first 4 people off their list. The other ones won't get into Parliament at all. So to recap, you get 2 votes. Your party vote is the main one that determines who's going to be in Parliament, except for in a few key electorates where small parties are really targeting those electorates. So those include the Māori Party in the Māori electorates, David Seymour for ACT in Epsom, and me, Jessica, for TOP in Ōhāriu. Put your questions in the comments. Ka kite.